Hello and welcome to Dice Punks, a tabletop role-playing podcast where we focus on playing full campaigns in less well-known systems. This week, my Unknown Armies coup continues. Hi, I'm Dez, and I'll be your needlessly ominous GM for today, and however long this little mishap continues.
And I'm Adam, and I'll be continuing to play Nia Farrell, bassist about libraries.
I'm Drew. For better and worse, I am continuing to play Benjamin Demos, whose logistics are on point and whose modular synth playing has been viewed tens of times this week on YouTube.
I'm Robin, and I arguably have always been playing Dream Boy Danny.
I'm Nick, and I will be playing George, who is big, he's strong, he's a little clueless, and he's a big fan of the rest.
He's the reason why the modular synth playing has been viewed tens of times this week on YouTube.
Exactly.
So we continue with the Unknown Armies probably 3 ? Shot. And Nick, would you like to give us the recap from last time?
Absolutely. So, as usual, I was working at the warehouse. And then after work, I must have taken some poison, as per usual, to build up my resistance, get tougher, get stronger. But this was a really wallop, of a dose. And so whatever it was that I took, I ended up in the living room with, some people that were a little strange. But who am I to judge? Drank some tea. But really, I'm just building up to the big. I met the band. The band, One for Sorrows, just fantastic. And then, there was some guy in a uniform that was saying something about identity theft. I wasn't really paying that much attention, but then I lost some time. It's not new. It's not the first time that's happened. But this one kind of freaked me out a little bit. For a moment, I even thought there was some kind of magic stuff going on, but that's ridiculous. So anyway, me and the band hung out in some boring office. And then we got in some donuts. We even made up some nicknames for each other. So that was fun. We're on, first name basis and nicknames at this point. Got Danny's take on the songwriting process, and I got signed tickets from each member of the band. And now we're on to some kind of a neat niche night market thing in San Cajetan. Don't really remember how I got there, but I'm sure if it's important, it'll come up later.
A few corrections. We do not endorse George drinking poison. We do endorse him drinking tea. We appreciate the views. The identity theft in question was a man with a stolen name who wanted us to recover it. Magic is not ridiculous. Apparently, in fact, Fey rules apply here. He also skipped just how excellent the donuts at Bob's Donuts were. He furthermore skipped the cable car ride, which was, to me, a highlight. No further quibbles.
Does anyone else have any further errata to add?
I think left off last time we were in some kind of antique or knickknack shop.
If I may, I just really appreciate connecting with a fan that totally gets the soul of the music that we're producing here.
Yeah, you used the phrase ziggurat, and whatever that is, it sounds pretty awesome.
Thank you.
So before we dive back into the knick-knack shop, does anybody have any stat growth? You did all get, I believe, 2 experience last time, which is enough to raise a stat by 1 point or skill by up to 2 points. XP in Unknown Armies is very simple.
indeed one of the things I appreciate about it. I think that my inclination, given the weird journey I found myself on and the fact that Fey rules are apparently in effect, am probably going to put both of those points into talk to cops, which is my lying skill, raising it from 20 to 22.
Which is a magnificent skill.
I think I'm going to put those 2 points into double think for similar reasons.
Nice.
Seems like holding two opposing truths in our minds at once, or in my mind specifically at once, could come up.
It seems like being able to assess someone's aura might come in handy, so I'm adding both of my points to Aura Sight.
Oh, please continuously use that. It's been a gift.
I think that George will be putting 2 points into Kick Butt, Take Some Names, because that way he'll be able to hug Nia more effectively if the situation arises that calls for that.
Nice.
Spec for the job you want.
Exactly.
The hairs on the back of my neck stand up, and I don't know why.
So with that, I think we can fall directly into things. You're in an overgrown, well, overstuffed warehouse ? Of a traveling magic shop, and a man behind a counter with a very large book on top of it, open to a page, I suppose, has just introduced himself as Denton Lucan in a nebulous and shifting as he speaks Eastern European accent.
A pleasure, Mr. Lucan. Do you sell names?
Absolutely fucking not.
Can't blame a guy for asking.
That was definitive. Not to be snide or anything, but what do you sell? It seems like there's a lot here, but I can't.
He
detect
just
the pattern.
gestures. If you have questions, he pats the book. I can tell you about things. Sometimes
All right.
information costs.
Are we talking price of a ham sandwich or price of a Miata?
Depends on the information, depends on the currency. Do you have a Miata?
Well, no. Not sure why I reached for that example.
Oh, can I ask, is it free to ask how much this neat dragon statue over here is?
Asking prices is always free.
Oh, good. My mom only sent me $100 today.
He just looks at you a little bit oddly. That is... He flips pages in the book. $38.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and get it.
I'm going to wander off looking at things while this happens.
He will give you a bit of an odd look, but shrug with a very clear, well, money is money. You exchange $38 for one kitschy dragon statue.
I feel like this is a good use of my monies.
As I'm browsing, I am going to be kind of looking with half an eye at the stuff as I'm passing by, but also just kind of casually ask, you wouldn't happen to know anything about a night market? I hadn't heard of that last time I happened to be in town, and we've been tasked with tracking something down that may be there. So this seems like your scene. Anything you'd be willing to share about it?
It is very not my scene, but I am aware of it. May I inquire as to who your employer is? Well, tasked. Who is having you do this thing?
Wish I knew.
We'd give you the name if we could, but there, as they say, is the rub. It's missing.
Someone with a taken name.
That might be a leap of logic, but potentially lost in any case. Is there a way to lose it other than having it taken?
I suppose you could misplace it, but that takes a certain caliber of person.
I'm going to mumble about somebody that I toured with in 1998.
I'm going to nod as though I've heard this story before.
Entirely possible.
Roll notice anyone who is nearish the counter.
Oh, I'm in the shelves.
I think I'm probably nearest the counter.
I just checked out, so I
Also
think I'm still
nearish,
over there.
I was talking to Lucan.
91.
61 for me.
17.
Is that over your stat, Robin?
It is.
Okay.
17 for me, in case that didn't come through.
It did not, so thank you. Nick, George is looking behind the counter. There are a number of additional shelves of, like, see shopkeeper for assistance type items, even though they are not marked as such. One of them is just an array of glasswares of various sorts, formalities, shapes, ages, etc. Most of them appear to have some manner of substance residue at the bottom, as if they are all used and have not been cleaned. Danny is distracted by the glitter, the shimmering appearance of your new dragon statue. It is entrancing.
Whoa.
Yes, don't stare at it too long.
Why?
That's what it does.
I don't understand. What dream logic is this? Is it gonna change shape on me later, or?
No, it attracts attention.
Oh.
To it.
You hear softly from the shelves the slap of my hand on my forehead hearing this.
I suppose I should be asking if you know what things do before that you buy them, but sometimes that knowledge is its own cost. So that is free.
I appreciate it.
As to your
anything...
17, skipping back to Drew there, you do hear Lucan mumble very quietly to himself, "That fucking librarian."
I lean in conspiratorially. Librarian?
Good hearing. Damn. Yes. We have a local pest. Is why I cannot stay in this city very long. My name is well known, but I will not let it be taken.
This pest, then, takes names.
You are new, yes?
Shiny.
I look back at the statue.
Roll notice, Robin.
Always a great sign. Ooh. Oh, yay! 24. I'm just under.
Nice.
Okay. You are able to tear your gaze away from the dragon statue to notice that Mustard Seed is having a conspiratorial conversation with Lucan. You don't quite hear what, because you really just want to look at the details of that dragon statue. Go ahead.
Before the scene moves on too far from me browsing, I would like to, if it is permissible, use my experimental librarian skill to try and see if I can begin to understand the organization of the items in this shop.
Oh, by all means.
So experimental librarian is at a 35. Mine is at 60. I have just rolled a 60.
All right. You are fairly certain that unless the organization is by what the items do, or, some other not directly related to the shape, mundane function, or style of the item that can be picked up by anyone who doesn't know what the hell is going on in this shop, that the organization is deliberately not.
Okay. Before I relinquish the spotlight here, I would like to ask if there is anything in my perusal that has particularly drawn my attention.
Roll notice.
All right. My notice is not great. 15, so let's see. 26, so it's between my notice and my mind stat.
That's fine. So, you're in the aisle with that roller skate that we mentioned last time. There's also a really ugly, spectacularly ugly music box with mismatched medals, different figures. There's a nutcracker in bronze and a silver medal, but obviously not silver, ballerina that probably orbits around the nutcracker. And the label indicates that it plays a melody from Swan Lake.
Okay.
There is a shelf full of books, none of which have labels on the spines, but appear to be a mismatched set, as it were. There are bookends separating them from the rest of the items on the shelves. There is a set of 3 left hiking boots. No right hiking boots to be had, at least not in this aisle. And there's a pair of gardening shears that the grips of which are aged and the rubber is cracking almost. Then the blades are very shiny with a faint red, it might be a temper on the edges.
All right. Well, that's fascinating. I'm going to make mental note of all of these, and then approach the counter, but wait in line behind the conversation that is
certainly
going on, and not interrupt. So carry on.
I believe the last thing I said was, so this pest takes names.
I believe that prompted the you are new and shiny response.
Exactly. That's correct. Yeah. Shiny. Correct. Just to recap. That dragon statue is really nice. On an unrelated note.
Roll notice.
56.
It's under your mind. You are able to focus on other things. This is fine. This is fine. You have been thrown into the deep end. Consider leaving the city.
That seems worth considering. If we were to do that, could we simply do that? Are there trains out of the city?
Have you not been to California before?
First time.
There is a functioning airport. I am told I do not often leave my shop. I do not need to. There are cars and highways. There are a variety of trains. There are boats, even. He shrugs. I say, realizing that the listener cannot see me shrug.
I think they heard it. Would you mind if I bring my companions into this conversation? I believe they should have some say in whether we flee, rather than my simply insisting upon it hysterically.
By all means, there appear to be no other customers in my shop, although if others do appear, I will need to attend them as well.
Of course. He thinks the end is deep and nigh, and we should flee.
What?
Well, if we think that that's going to be possible, I'm all for it. Who knows what's going on at the library right now, but it kind of seemed like we got shanghaied into this. My library. I'm not from here. I'm not surprised you haven't heard of it.
Okay. He sort of... You get the sort of grumpy old man equivalent of feathers unruffling.
Mm-hmm. Considering look for a couple moments, followed by before we flee or try to or whatever. You said that what things do is usually free information?
Usually.
All right. I have not picked up any of these items. I've just noted them. But I'm going to ask him first about the books. There's a set of books and bookends here. I'm not sure which.
He
if they're all a
starts
set
flipping
or...
through the large book angled away from customers on the counter. Like inches of pages at a time.
Mm-hmm. I try really hard not to look like I am hungry when I look at the book.
He just raises an eyebrow without even looking at you, and he has probably flipped a foot and a half of pages in a book that may or may not actually extend that far. You don't dwell on it, obviously. Before stopping, flipping two more pages. Were those the books with the geode bookends? Yes.
Indeed. I wasn't sure if it was each book was individual, the books were a set, or the books came with the bookends, or the bookends were their own thing, but I'd be interested in knowing what all of it does.
The bookends are the purchasable part. The books are a result. The bookends function as a security log. Comings, goings, takings, leavings.
I see.
The books appear and fill themselves, and when they are full, new books appear. Occasionally, you will likely want to trim.
Yes.
He quotes you a figure. He quotes you a figure for them that is 3 months' rent.
I nod thoughtfully, trying not to look stricken. I gesture vaguely in the direction of the music box. Describe it. There's a real ugly music box with a ballerina and a nutcracker. What's that one do?
It plays ballet, but never the nutcracker.
I wish I didn't like it, but I do. I couldn't help but notice there was one roller skate.
No.
There isn't one roller skate?
There are 2 roller skates, but I do not sell those anymore. They appear.
Okay. May want to take it out of inventory then. Not that I'm going to tell you how to run your shop,
get
actually.
The most condescendingly patronizing look of, yes, of course, that you have perhaps ever experienced.
Fortunately for me, I am really well practiced in
the art of not
giving a shit. Yeah, about that look in particular. So I just kind of like shake my finger a little bit, like I'm thinking, and go, do you do? I mean, I'm guessing you don't do like installments or layaway or payment plans or anything, but do you do like alternate payments? Is there anything other than American dollars that we could negotiate for those bookends? I happen to be a musician and know a few.
1 significant, to be specified at a later date.
I have a debit card.
Thanks, Danny, but I think we're okay. Favors. That's a little... I was hoping for something a little more concrete, but I'm guessing that
to
those
give
are
you an
not
idea
likely
of scale, the first of those favors would be that if you do continue to investigate the taken names, you find the bastard in charge of all of this, and you punch him one.
A moment ago, this constituted the deep end. What makes you think we're capable of fulfilling such a favor?
It will be interesting to hear about.
Hey, Danny, you tuning in here, or are you still staring at that dragon?
I missed some of that. Sorry, you're gonna have to... What do you need?
Just wanted to make sure you were paying attention, because I think you're going to get some pretty good lyrics out of all
yeah,
this.
thanks. Let me...
Do you want me to wrap that up and put it in my bag?
That might be a good idea. I want to make sure that nothing happens to it, because it's so shiny.
You don't really want him to wrap it up, but you're also not going to tell your friend no on this score?
Yeah, no, it seems right up your alley. Good find. So I don't want anything to happen to it. I put like one of the emergency blankets in my go bag around it and put it in there.
And all of a sudden, you can actually think clearly again.
Oh,
about things that are not
clearly as Danny ever thinks.
I mean, yes.
Everything's relative.
True. But I'm kind of considering, and I tell Lucan, not to ask you to go against your own self-interest here, but I mean, I'm guessing based on the number of books between those bookends that those bookends aren't exactly flying off the shelves. Is it possible I could circle back with you later about those? Because cards on the table, they'd be really useful. But I'm not
You'd be
carrying that
surprised
kind
at
of
the degree
cash.
to which many of these things are not flying off the shelves, but I have enough in circulation. If you have a counteroffer, I would be willing to hear it. But
Well, I didn't see that many books, and I don't know if those are a super valuable commodity, but I can be a pretty good supplier of both those and information if you wanted to do some sort of ongoing arrangement. Ever made it out to Chicago?
I spent some time there before it most recently burned.
It's got a bad habit of that.
I wish you didn't make that sound so ominous.
Oh no, I was not a part of the burning. I, in fact, helped
Good to know.
it not be an existential and retroactive event.
Let's put a pin in that. I run a community center and library just on the south edge of Bronzeville. The Freedom Library Center. It's not super well known, but we do okay.
Oh.
And
Did you take up after the failure of, I cannot recall what he called it, but a man named Iskinder set one up, and it did not last long.
Huh.
The name rings vague bells for you.
Yeah, no, I never had the pleasure of his acquaintance, but yeah, I hear about him from time to time. Don't know where I heard it. Shake my head a little bit. But yeah, I operate just below the radar a lot of the time, and something of a specialist in acquiring rarities for my collection. I'd be willing to put information or even volumes under the right circumstances at your disposal if that's something that interests you.
He gives you a measuring look. You definitely get the feeling that you are being weighed as if against a feather.
I will add as casually as I can that could even throw in a signed album for you when it comes out.
Interesting. Your kind do not usually give your books away.
My librarians typically do that, though.
So you are not a bibliomancer. I leave it to you as to whether or not you understand what that actually means in character.
My understanding, or my thought, is that in character, I understand that is a thing, but probably not how my methods are different from usual.
Sure.
So I'll just kind of cock my head and be like, I've heard that term, but I'm not entirely sure what would distinguish me from them. Suffice to say, I take my collection and its circulation very seriously. And if it's not too high on my own horse. I'm pretty good at my job.
I raise the horse higher.
I just very sort of like, without turning my head at all, just hold a fist up to the side for a quick little fist bump.
I return it, of course.
That'd be a good lyric.
You are a curious one. I don't mean that in the sense of being wary of cats, but that's also...
I mean, no offense or anything, but from my perspective, you're the one of interest here. So I guess thanks.
Interest and curiosity are very different things. But I will tell you this.
Mm-hmm.
If you stick around, even though it may be safer for you to not, and if you punch that son of a bitch for me, and you return, we can discuss whatever remaining balance might be necessary for you to possess those books, or rather, those bookends. Is that satisfactory?
That does seem fair. I almost am afraid to ask, given how hard a bargain you drive, but it seems like you know who's behind this whole name theft thing that we've been tasked with. Is that something you'd be willing to share?
Until it is a matter of the balance of reality, it is not worth my meddling.
Okay, so turn to my friends. How exactly do we get home then? Because this sounds heavy, and I got a library to take care of.
Would be good to come back with a treasure in tow, but it is easier to punch a face when you can find it.
Sure. I mean, sounds good to me. I'm fine with bailing. You know, I want to stick with you guys. It'd be a shame not to stop by the night market first and pick up a knickknack. You know, some memento of our time together.
Yeah, I really do want to check out this night marketplace. I'm not quite ready to wake up just yet. I think this is a really interesting dream.
Open my mouth, close it, sigh. Well,
Life is a very interesting dream.
Mr. Lucan, it's been a pleasure. Will you, this may be a silly question, still be here if we come back to this spot?
I think the best I can give you is a solid maybe. However, people do tend to be able to locate my shop. The higher the need, the likelier the appearance.
Yeah, well, also, Denton, was it? Before we leave, I don't see much of what I'm looking for here, but there's a lot here. So, do you have any free weights? Maybe some whey protein, something like that?
Pretty sure not on the whey protein. That may be something you want to consult a grocery store for?
Sure. Yeah.
But give me a moment. And he starts... He starts by flipping half of the visible book, and you begin to realize that the book may in fact extend into the counter. Sort of like the book version of, like, the carousel of shirts and jackets that you get at a dry cleaner. And then, you know, another couple of several inch segments, and then, you know, finer and finer pagings. Before... Okay. Yes. On the third aisle back that way, there is a book, appropriately enough, but you won't be able to open it.
I don't know. I'm pretty strong.
You get the sort of smile that is somewhere between sure bud and an outright dare. It weighs what you want it to.
That's either fantastic or horrible. I don't really know which. Let's try it out.
That will be $80.
$80. Yeah, well, you sure spin a fanciful tale. Let me go try that out real quick.
I can spot you if you need me to. I've got a debit card.
Awesome. Oh, with money.
I can spot you that way too.
Right on.
So do you go back and retrieve this book, Nick?
Oh, yeah. And the whole way back, I'm trying to open it.
Well, before you get to that, roll me a mind.
My forte. That's an 87.
What number are you thinking of when you pull the book off the shelf?
I try not to think of numbers. I expect it to weigh maybe 5 pounds.
Okay. For everyone's reference, I am rolling 4d10s right now.
Oh!
All right, then.
So, and your body is 75.
Mm-hmm.
You are not prepared for it to weigh approximately 200 pounds off the shelf. But roll your body to see if you can pick it up.
All right. That's a 26.
Cool. Yeah. You are carrying that in both hands for damn sure. And,
there's a huge smile on his face as he's walking back.
Are you trying to open it as well?
Yes.
Or are you just carrying it? Okay. Roll soul.
That's a 59 for soul.
Okay. You are sure that if you open this book, the weights will fall out?
Okay. Yeah, better not. So George thinks better of it and instead just kind of carries it, maybe doing a few presses on the way. Feeling its heft. Really kind of amazed that, must have some, I don't know, lead or gold or something in it. Probably gold. So this is really a great deal. Yeah, so George brings it back and says, yeah, this is awesome. I will absolutely take this, but $80? You know that there's got to be something precious in this, right? Otherwise, how could it be so heavy?
The book itself is valuable, but to the best of my understanding, there is no precious anything within it. It is a weight that you can make library jokes about, I suppose.
I look thoughtful.
A knowledge is a terrible burden. The more you have, the heavier it is.
Do you heft it onto the counter?
Down.
Yeah, I drop it on the counter and fish in my wallet.
audibly like thuds in the way that like very much larger books or perhaps the One Ring sort of do. And Lucan reaches out a hand, just sort of slaps it onto the book before it can like dent the counter. And withdraws it. This should make for better carrying. Be sure
George
about the
picks it up.
numbers you think. It weighs perhaps half an ounce.
George is puzzled, but it must be magnets. George shrugs, looks at the rest of the band.
I assume you pay for this, incidentally.
I do, if George
I
doesn't.
Yeah, I think that George opens up his wallet, and he's got most of what he needs, but not quite all of it, and he looks a little embarrassed.
Okay.
I split the difference
Cool.
using my debit card. Which I
Which
have.
you have.
Does Lucan take cards?
Yeah, that's the exact question I hope would come up as a result of this.
He takes out one of those, like, connect to a USB card reader
Squares.
things that is manifestly not connected to any sort of electronic device. And just sets it on the counter expectantly.
It makes sense in my head, so I swipe it all the same.
Cool. Transaction proceeds.
To no one in particular, I say magnets.
Magnets. George agrees. Then George says, last question, then I'll get out of your hair. It just, seems like you've got enough, a lot of stuff here. And you seem cool. He lowers his voice a little bit. Do you have any poisons?
My head whips around.
What sort of poison are you after? Most chemicals in sufficient quantities or concentrations can be poisonous, at least to humans. Are you looking for yourself, for an enemy, for a particular animal? Qualify your question, please.
Yeah. Something for me, something venomous, something poisonous, something toxic that I could maybe gradually microdose and get better at resisting.
So something that is not immediately fatal.
Or something that is definitely fatal in higher doses, but, maybe not in tiny doses.
Are you interested in bargaining in favors?
Well,
I do have need of hands who can accomplish things beyond, well, my reach.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I'm one, friend to another. You seem like a friendly sort, just, what do you need?
Favors unspecified.
Okay, well, if you end up moving, I'm good at moving things. Lifting things, throwing things.
I would require your phone number as proof of payment.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Let's exchange details.
Okay. Just write your phone. He slides a piece of paper across the counter. Write your phone number down. Something I can call you. It need not be your name. I understand things are particular about that around here at the moment.
Yeah, you seem pretty free with your own name. That's cool.
My name is known, and the problem that is local is not up to the task of taking me on.
Wow. I don't understand what that means, but it sounds pretty badass.
Do not trouble yourself. He turns around and reaches up to one of the shelf of drinking vessels and takes down a cut crystal like 10-year-old fantasy reading boy's idea of a goblet that looks like it has residue in the bottom, as if you left a full glass of wine alone for a decade to evaporate. Just on the very bottom, like, fraction of an inch, there's this sort of patina of red. And sets it on the counter gingerly. Do not start with more than 2 drops. Fill only with water. I am not responsible if you die.
All right. Well sold.
Please don't die before you buy an album.
Does this mean we're responsible if he dies?
Only if he hasn't bought an album yet.
They tend to show up again if they die. It's fine.
To be honest, I wasn't terribly responsible to begin with, so...
That laugh may be in character for me. Clap George on the back. And then look at Danny. Danny, you remember... You know what? Forget memory. Be open to the idea that this may not be a dream. Just in case.
I get that a whole lot. Usually from someone who's a bit taller and darker and more mysterious.
If I find platform boots and a tall collar, then I'll try to fit the mold. But it would be weird if this was a dream, because we'd be having the same one.
I mean, I think that's a possibility.
Sure, I just don't want you to get reckless if it turns out that it's not.
I take dreams very seriously.
You know what? I believe that, so carry on. We probably done here?
Unless there is anything else that any of you would like to consider purchasing. I know that, Drew, I don't think you've done much there, but...
I don't think I have. No, I've been so focused on information, and I think maybe that's the thing that I most want to buy. I think for a moment, I have a faraway look that says, I'm tall, I'm dark, I'm mysterious, and I'm definitely not who Danny means. Then I look away, and I ask Denton, what's the most expensive piece of information you have? Don't share it, of course, but describe it. What does it do? That part's free, right?
To some degree, information is priced on the client and what they would do with it or could do with it. For you, the most expensive piece of information would be the nature of the systems of reality that undergird the conflict between what is and what is believed to be, and could act as a fulcrum to shift between those tracks.
You're right, I didn't see that on the shelves. That would cost, I assume, more than I can pay.
And if you have to ask the price.
How much to tell us where this face that wants punching is?
I will mumble something to myself about never having been in an antique store that had market price before.
Like information lobsters.
Information lobsters.
I love that.
Don't
Turn
most antique
to-
stores have things that are simply not labeled, and if you want to know what they cost, then you either have the money to buy them or you don't?
Not the
To be
ones
fair,
I've
it has been
been
a
in.
very long time since I've been in a proper antique store.
I'll turn
There's
to
plausible deniability, I think, in most antique stores as to whether that's that, the proprietor has not bothered to label them or whether they're pricing based on the client, I think.
My great-grandmother did apparently have, back in the day, an antique store in San Francisco, and it was largely an interactive storage unit of sorts. So whether or not any particular thing was on sale was indeed up to her personal opinion of whoever was asking, and the price would vary accordingly.
Mm.
At any rate, I'll certainly tell Danny to write down his turn of phrase there for lyrics later.
As to the location of the local upstart, the night market will likely be able to furnish you with some of that information without having to pay me or implicate me in a way that would upset my neutrality in this matter.
That's perfectly reasonable. Only one more question. I take out of my pocket a penny that has been sliced in half, and I ask, what is the least expensive piece of information you have?
I love that you just have this.
There are
penny.
no public restrooms. He takes your penny.
Thank you.
I will
To
lean
the night
over
market, then.
and go, did you slice that penny in half yourself, or is there a story behind that?
Yes.
You see Lucan looking at the penny.
The slices is probably very clean.
It is, and he is holding it by the opposite edge. He takes out, like, a disinfectant wipe, swipes it across the entirety of the thing, wipes that off in turn with a paper towel, and just, like, bites it slightly as if, it were some manner of coinage susceptible to evaluation in that regard. He nods.
It's real. It's real, if any of us are.
Well, it's certainly more real than a whole penny would be. It has been thoroughly observed.
Well, thank you for your time, Mr. Lucan. I'll try to be in touch about those bookends, but I think we have a night market to get to.
Indeed, and it should be just starting. If you are presented with any contracts, do read them over. That is free.
Thank you for the advice.
Thank you, Mr.
You
Lucan.
have a good evening.
It's been
Have a good
a
day.
pleasure.
I will
Yes, thank you very much.
start to leave, pause, take out one of my Freedom Library Center cards, and set it gently on the counter and just mumble, just in case, and then head out.
Roll notice.
Notice?
Yeah.
49, which is between my skill and my stat.
Okay. Yeah, you see him sort of wave his hand over it, and the card disappears between one pass and the next.
Can I roll do two things at once? To have written our SoundCloud URL on it, sleight of hand style, somewhere in there?
Absolutely.
Not even Bandcamp.
No, the album's not done. 59.
Oh, darn.
Do two things at once is at 40, so.
Yes, and it is also over your speed, so you take the pen out, you are reaching, and then the card is gone.
Fair enough. For the record, my speed is deliberate, and my body is accountant countenance.
That's very good.
I love that.
I probably should have mentioned my soul's descriptor earlier when I was doing my lying skill, but my soul is 70 and the descriptor is live hardcore, which I'm relatively proud of.
I am very pleased
good.
with
It's quite good.
everyone's stat descriptors. It is, as I have mentioned, one of my favorite things about this system.
Yeah, same.
I do love particularly how Nick's mind descriptor at 29 is irrelevant, and irrelevant is misspelled.
Yep.
Perfect.
Chef's kiss. Chef's kiss.
You leave the traveling shop. You are back out on the marina. As some of you may be half or more than half expecting, you hear a pop. You turn around and there are two houses.
I sigh as deeply as I am able.
You had to know that was
That
coming,
shouldn't...
though.
Mhm.
That or
Hence
something
the
like it, although
sigh.
it shouldn't have been possible. I'm also rubbing my left palm, and I say, now that we're out of there and we're not in front of an information broker, it shouldn't have been possible either for a page to cut a penny in half, or to do this. I hold up my hand and I have what is most of the way healed, but was probably the worst paper cut ever recorded. Going from about the tip of my middle finger to about my wrist. It is at the point where the skin is beginning to peel off and it's angry red underneath. It will leave a scar. Strange things have been happening lately.
You should put that away before this becomes a nightmare.
I do so.
Strange indeed. Well, if you're okay, then we should probably proceed to the night market. Anybody know where the Palace of Fine Arts is from here, or should I pull out my phone?
You were within sight of it when
We were able to see it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I think, yeah.
So yeah, we orient on that.
a considerable
and
amount of time, perhaps more even than you had thought, has passed. So it is now actually an appropriate time for a night market. The sun has gone down, the air is cooling. You can see in two directions bridges out from San Cajetan that are lighting up at night.
It's kind of beautiful.
yeah, it was a
Yes.
nice town once.
Could be again.
Hope it will be.
Yeah.
Maybe without the parasites this time, but it needs some time, I think.
Seems like a face punching is in order to make it that way.
One face punching at a time.
Knew I liked you, Danny.
So you
I
approach the
shift
night market?
my go bag on my shoulders and lead the way to the night market.
Then, yeah, so you walk around the pool that lets in from the bay into the structure of the palace, which is a series of colonnades, really, around a building that you are not going into. There isn't security, but it is manifestly closed for the night. As you approach the rotunda itself, there are security fences that have been where the razor wire has been woven through with fairy lights. And the gate is open, and there is a desk, table, something on that order, behind which, in a comically small chair, sits an extremely large person, blonde with, like, intricate braids, both of hair and of beard. It's precisely the sort of style, Nick, to which you manifestly aspire.
Until you specified braids of
Listener.
beard, I got a little bit worried there.
No, this is not roided out Elsa.
Another time.
I think for a moment that I may have seen this person doing bouncer duty before, but then on a closer inspection, probably the first time I've seen them.
Yeah, they wave you over in a cheerful, deep voice, greet you, and say, hey, don't think I've seen any of you folks before. Are you here for the night market?
Sure. Anything we should know before we head in?
Well, let's see. We've got a couple of folks missing tonight, so it's a sort of smaller crowd than usual. Obviously, shoplifting and assault are thoroughly frowned upon. They say with a not very subtle, but they think is subtle, like flex of rippling shoulders. And be very careful what you say to the contractor.
I catch up on the last couple things that they've said because I've been unintentionally but undeniably giving them elevator eyes while they spoke, and upon catching up, nod affably. Right, yeah, no, we wouldn't want to cause any trouble, and thanks for the advice.
Tea is over at the bar there. Do specify whether you want something that is merely alcoholic or otherwise. And yeah, have a good time.
Thanks for the advice. Do you mind if I ask your name, or what you like to be called anyway?
You can call me the Dane.
The Dane. Well, good to make your acquaintance. I proffer a hand and introduce myself. Nia.
Lovely to meet you. They smile. Mm-hmm. It's devastating.
I realize that I gave my real name about 10 steps past where they are seated.
I think the gasp was entirely in character.
That makes perfect sense. This is definitely one of Nia's types. So not thinking with a full tank. So yeah, there's not very much I can do about having given my name, so I just pretend like nothing happened and carry
I am going to use Aurasight on the Dane to see if I can glean any information of how big a risk this was.
Sure. Roll it.
All right. Ooh, 11.
Nice.
Excellent. So, Bright.
Does that... Wait, what was the rules for increasing things by a point if you have matching numbers? So that increases it?
If you roll a match, yeah, you increase it by 1. If you roll further matches this session, you have gotten your 1 free one for Aurasight.
Okay.
Right. Other skills can still increase this way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Aurasight has gotten its 1.
They look bright. You get a sort of shimmering, fleeting, as if it's not a solid connection, but you get a glimpse of an enormous two-handed sword and, like, the most stereotypical of, like, horned Viking hat before that fades, and you see a line trailing off from their aura into the distance a bit. You don't see where it goes.
They're connected to someone somehow. What could you repeat what you said about the hat, because your voice broke up a little bit?
The most the most stereotypical of horned Viking hat.
Okay.
And a fleeting impression, too, of a two-handed sword.
Perfect.
So you walk in. So it's just the interior of the rotunda. There's a giant dome, dozens of feet above you. It's otherwise open to the air. Inside the fencing, depending on how you feel about these things, it may feel cozy, it may feel cramped, it may feel bigger on the inside. It's awfully hard to measure any of this, but there are a number of booths, stalls, etc. There is a well-constructed, hopefully modular, because otherwise it would be a nightmare to get in and out, bar behind which a person with shaved sides to their head and a skimpy little tank top despite the weather is mixing drinks from a wide array of unlabeled bottles in as many different types of glasses as you can think of, while keeping up a patter of chatter with 3 or 4 different people, at least 2 of whom seem to be flirting. There is a stall with a set of books, 6 or 8 of them, and a stack of paper. There is the gaudiest and most over the top, like, woo, this is some mystical shit, like tentlet, like that is adorned with stars and moons in like astronomically improbable fashion, that is very obviously like, come in, have your fortune told, etc. There is someone at just one of those like 3x5 fold-a-table type things that has a whole bunch of little metal somethings you can't quite make out from this distance. There are a couple of others obscured from your present sightlines.
When my companions catch up, I will, having surveyed this, turn and go, all right, well, like, obviously I'm going to go check out the books, but if everybody can do better than I just did it, using your assumed names, sorry about that, maybe a good idea would be to kind of split up and scout and then meet back at the bar in a few minutes, or you guys have a better idea?
Remember not to eat or drink anything.
Ah, fuck.
Perhaps we
You're
should
right.
set the very visible starry tent. Is that the most visible thing, Des?
I mean, the bar appears to be the most central thing.
Okay.
The table, or the booth with the books, appears to have the best sight lines of everywhere. The tent with the stars is the most visible eyesore.
I'm thinking in terms of what would work as a landmark for us to reconvene.
Any of those, it's not a huge place.
Okay. Oh, okay. The bar's fine then. I don't actually say out loud like maybe we should meet somewhere else. But I just remind everyone not to eat or drink and leave it at that.
And perhaps don't be driven to distraction either. No judgment, but some danger. This to Nia.
Right. Well, look, not to put too fine a point on it, but like, if I find something good among those books, that could actually help us out a fair bit.
I want to check out the starry tent.
All right, so you're splitting up, which obviously makes my life harder, and I don't blame you at all, because I'm usually one of the first players to split off from other things in a wide variety of games, including those of at least one of our dear listeners. So I will leave it then to you all. Who wants to go first?
Nick?
I could go. It might not take terribly long.
All right. What are you up
A
to?
George-sized hand has been raised. Yeah.
Yeah, so he just goes to the nearest stall that you had prepared.
Okay.
And who does he see? Is there a person there?
So the nearest stall is probably the bar.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that is the table with the ill-described small metal things on.
Mm-hmm.
Which of those are you following instructions to avoid eat or drink?
Yeah, but more so, yeah. So he will follow those instructions and wander instead towards the metal figurines or that
Okay,
stall. Um,
sure. So behind the table is a slightly shorter than average height man with uh, reddish hair, not quite copper, not quite blonde, but sort of in that depending on the light
mhm.
spectrum in between. Uh, with a table full of clockwork things, many of which have spinning gears at different speeds and appear to be uh, lifelike in a steampunk sort of way.
Mm.
Sculptures or constructions of very small things. He greets you as you approach and asks if he can demonstrate anything for you.
Oh, hi. I mean, that would be fantastic. I'm called Annelius. I'm here with lots of fantastic people. They're all in a band. You've probably heard of them. George gushes. He says they're called One for Sorrow, and he looks expectantly for recognition.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that I came across a couple of their videos on there was a post on Reddit that like was showcasing something. I can't remember what it was showcasing, but like their vibes are immaculate.
Their vibes are immaculate, right?
Yeah, so any of these of particular interest?
Oh yeah, no.
Many of them are little small animals, others are like it looks like there is a hand that is holding a pen that is writing on another hand that is holding a pen that is writing on the first hand.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of different things, like sort of think of the very complicated, like does cute things piggy bank type mechanics to like this is a music box where the internal gears are also acting out the scene of the thing to like this is just beautiful gear work.
Yeah.
Roll notice.
That is a 22.
Well, increment your notice. That's lovely. It only takes you a couple of seconds, really, to realize that the hand that he is waving to demonstrate, to indicate his wares, is also a clockwork. It's not, as you thought it might be, like a brass and chrome colored glove, but instead it's very fine, articulated mechanisms and levers and gears and joints that mimic a human hand, as if each finger had one extra point of articulation. And you know how in there's at least one old movie where like the lead and the romantic interest are in the way of like 1950s movie musicals dancing their way across a typewriter. I'm thinking particularly of one where it takes a while for the like levers that are usually the keys that when pressed imprint the letter onto the page. it takes a while for that to resolve into, oh, those are dancers' legs doing that. It's sort of the opposite effect of that, where you realize that this mechanism is indeed a mechanism and not just a hand. And because you are up to... Oh, you're only one. How are you not hardened at all on unnatural? Have you not been keeping track of those, sir?
I think that I failed one of unnatural.
Okay.
Yeah, that
well,
was
that
the first
sure
check
is...
of the evening.
Okay, that sure
Or
is a hand
pastime.
with an extra joint on it that is not operated by any obvious power source. So roll your mind, would you?
Oh, yeah, of course. Oh, dropped a die. Re-rolling. That is a 94.
Freeze, frenzy, or flee?
Flee, I think. Which is
Okay,
the
we'll come
most
back to you.
inappropriate response to that.
Mm-hmm. But most entertaining, potentially.
Only if Yakety Sax starts playing.
Yeah.
So we'll come back to you. Who wants to go next?
I suppose I will go.
So where are you off to?
The fortune teller eyesore.
Okay, so you draw back the, I want to say veil, but it's really not a veil. It's heavy, like, drop cloth to the tent and enter, and a man stands. He's sort of shortish, wiry, black hair, blue eyes, sharp, observant gaze. Hello, you may call me Rook. What are you looking for here?
Hello, you may call me Raven. I am looking for information, but...
Fortune smiles.
Pardon?
Fortune smiles. And so does he.
I am looking for information, but also it's my first time at the night market, so I don't really know what to expect.
Well, welcome. Well, the information that I offer tends towards the prognosticative. I'd be happy to read your palm or cards or really any other manner of divination that you might prefer. I do charge extra for horospexy. And I discourage the use of runes.
Could you perchance use this when I pull out my oracle deck?
Sure. We will note on the side that I have absolutely no idea what the proper use or mechanism of an oracle deck is, and we'll just abstract that.
Or we can just say it's a tarot deck, since I know you have one on hand.
Oh, yeah. I do.
There we go. So let's retcon that and say have a tarot deck.
Okay. Would you prefer to use your own deck, then? I do happen to have one here.
This one is bound to me.
Certainly. Then hopefully it will respond well to me, even if I am not its intended reader, as it were. He accepts the deck from you, assuming you proffer it, with care, mixes it lightly in ways that are obviously intended to not damage the cards. There is no bending, there is no sort of rubbing the cards up against each other to fit it all in. And he just sort of nods slightly. Are you continuing your aura sight, or was that just a one-off with the day?
Oh no, I'm going to aura sight.
Okay, so just let me know when you're going to do that, since I am going to want rolls for each person
Okay.
or general thing that you're going to be looking at, just so I can.
I probably do it as I'm passing off my deck.
Okay, cool.
That is 25.
Okay.
Rolling better
so
today.
always good. So there is a silver sort of outline to this fellow, that there's a cape that he's got, and a top hat that are only an outline. But he has a similar brightness to the Dane at the door, as it were. And he also has a thread trailing off from his aura. But he takes the cards, he shuffles them. Is there a particular question that you are seeking answers to, or would you prefer a general reading?
I want to ask, where should I look to find the name that I am tasked with locating?
A good question. A dangerous one. He starts drawing from the cards, and without going into depth with it in an exegetical sense, but lays out a spread of 8 cards in a geometric fashion that he gives you a bit of a patter all the way through. You get the sense that it is bedside manner rather than treatment, as it were, but that there is some processing going on as he is reviewing the cards and glancing at you, and occasionally looking slightly off to the right. And the name that you are looking for is... It would do you a disservice to give you the easy answer that it is nowhere, that it is everywhere, that it is not going to be found, because it is already claimed. You will need to fight for it. It is... And then it looks like the string is pulled. And the cape and the top hat collapse. And the man sits down heavily in a chair that you hadn't noticed that he was standing in front of, and starts coughing. Not quite like an asthma attack, more like a consumptive love interest into a convenient handkerchief. Sorry. I don't think I'm allowed to answer further. Is there a different question that you would like?
I saw why you're not able to answer further. I look to my right. Do I see anything?
The tent wall.
The what?
The fabric wall of the tent.
Why not just do a basic past, present, future spread for me then?
Sure. He proffers the deck back to you and suggests that you shuffle your own cards.
I do.
Takes it from you, lays out one, without really looking at the card itself, more looking from it to the deck to you, to the deck to the card that he drew. You are not from here, and your dreams are unresolved. They await and open in kaleidoscope and never quite close. Second card. Similarly, without really looking at the card itself, you are here as a potential for tales with an other side and a heroism and fools. And then he starts to smile, and with the one who was tossed out of curiosity on his ear. Good company. Not safe company, but good company. The eyes behind your eyes will do you well. And he draws the third card. This, obviously, draws close to the same problem as with the last reading, so I will necessarily be circumspect. But consider trust and power and levers and outcomes. Be sure to be armed, in some fashion. Church can be a refuge. And as he finishes saying that, he starts coughing again.
Thank you, Rook.
And he looks at you as if he's trying to ask for help, but he cannot speak it.
I respond, I will do what I can.
A curt nod.
I look pointedly
and then he
down at the thread connecting him elsewhere before inclining my head and holding my hand out for the cards.
He has set his head down upon his arms on the table and is not responsive anymore.
I collect the cards myself. And I nod once again to him a bit more slowly. Be safe, Rook. I leave the tent.
He coughs and thanks you between them. So, Adam, what are you up to?
Well, I head to the stall with the books first.
At the stall with the books, there is a neatly and severely dressed woman, a distaff counterpart to Monsieur Mustard Seed in that regard. But you can be fairly certain that she does not play the modular synth.
Pity.
He has a little business card holder filled with neatly stacked and viciously precise business cards that just say, Jane the Contractor. There is a sequence of about 5 underscores in, the Victorian sort of, there is something that belongs here and I am not saying it.
Very well.
That is beside the set of books that are labeled obligations. And to her right is a stack of thick, high-quality paper. The sort that is just visible from a distance of, oh yeah, that's money. And she has a lineup behind the books. As you get nearer, you can see this, of dip pens with viciously sharp nibs. Here to make a bargain.
Suppose I hope to. Not familiar with these volumes. Legations?
Yes, they track who owes what to whom. I
Fascinating.
enforce contracts.
I see.
Is there a second party to the contract you are hoping to make?
Not currently, but I hope to find one. I suppose you're not able to discuss prior contracts by any chance?
If you believe that you are a necessary third party to a contract between two other individuals, or that a contract between two or more others has in some way wronged you, then we could speak about that in terms of redress that you might seek, or further obligations that might be enforceable to you. But I record contracts and enforce them.
I see. Sounds like fascinating work, and I suspect I will have need of your services before I leave this evening.
Marvelous.
May I take a card?
Oh, please do.
I give a nod. I take a card, and I try to give an affable, sure, I'll be seeing you, as I sort of turn and amble in the direction of the bar.
Enjoy the market, Nia.
Thank you. Now, as I am heading to the bar, I would like to use read between the lines.
Okay.
Which is a significant formula spell for bibliomancy
Yes.
that allows me to ascertain whether or not a single stated fact, not a question, is true at this moment in time in sort of a... It says you are granted a vision of the abstract reality behind the fact you wish to judge.
Oh, good Lord. You're certainly not pulling punches here.
Indeed not. I suppose that this could be viewed as a type of what goes around comes around, perhaps.
I mean, that's functionally what this one shot is, with, the additions of Robin and Drew and Nick. It's really just each of us giving the other payback for years and years and years of being on the other side of this with each other.
Quite so.
We don't feel like we're just here to witness the conflagration, but it's not part of the deal.
Indeed.
Well said.
So this formula spell costs me a significant charge, which will leave me with 2. I'm going to roll my anarcho-bibliomancy in just a moment. And my single stated fact is going to be, remind me of the contract enforcer's name.
Jane, 5 underscores.
Jane, okay. So my single stated fact that I'm trying to ascertain the truth of is one of Jane's contracts pertains to our missing name. Try to see with this if that is true or false. I think that was good. It was indeed good. I rolled a 40, and my anarcho-bibliomancy skill is 40.
Beautiful. You are no longer in the night market. You are floating above an abstract table on which are laid out all of the contents of all of the books that have been in Jane's possession now or at any other point. You can see the violence that has been done to the paper, of contracts that have been broken. You can see the shredded remains of contracts that have been completed long enough ago to no longer be necessary even for record keeping. You can see stacks and stacks, reams of paper unyet written upon, with the ghosts of contracts to come. You can see documents that specify allegiances and obligations and the bindings of names. And within this, within all of this set of contracts that relate to names, none of them appear to be a name so powerful that it would be the one you seek. However, you get the sense that Fey rules, at least because of names, apply due to this woman.
Fascinating. I continue toward the bar and wait patiently to gain the bartender's attention.
Sure. T starts talking with you as well as 3 other conversations that are happening approximately simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
You can only see their mouth moving to frame responses to you, to frame responses to one of the other patrons, but all of the conversations proceed apace and perhaps in parallel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what can I do for you? Need to pep me up?
Not just right now. I'm trying to keep a clear head, but this seemed like a
We
good
can
place
certainly
to take a look.
accomplish that. Absolutely.
You're better at this job than I ever was. Tended a few bars in my time, but never quite had the knack for it.
Well, it's mostly a matter of being able to do enough things at once. It helps, of course, that I'm very good at my own creations. They tip you a wink.
I can
Slide a number of drinks across the bar at a number of other people where that number is more than 2, you're pretty sure. But they only have 2 hands, and their attention is on you and everyone else.
Don't want to trouble you, but, well, this is my first time here at this market, and I was
welcome.
Well, thank you. I was wondering if I was looking for a name. Is there any place in particular that I would go to find it?
We don't do that here. We recommend against it.
Yeah. That is my feeling as well, but I find myself, well, compelled.
Compelled?
Might be overstating things to call it kidnapping, but, well, it's not dissimilar either, and I would like to wrap it up. Places to be, of course. But,
of course. We are all busy people, of course.
But it seems like maybe this isn't the ultimate destination.
It rarely is. Well, except for my most regulars. A beer crosses the bar. Well, information is not really something that we sell much here. I mostly dabble in drinks and concoctions. And you get the definite sense that concoctions are not just alcohol. Jane may know, although, good luck. Rook might know, but he's got a delicate constitution sometimes. Dawn. Go talk to Dawn.
Dawn.
They point behind you, and there is an unassuming table between where George is running in very tight circles as fast as he possibly can, and where Danny has just emerged from a tent that you hadn't really noticed before. It seems like it is deliberately out of the way, and behind it there is sitting a somewhat heavy-set black woman in an elegant and brightly colored, not quite a dress, not quite not a dress, reminiscent of something very formal, but certainly not American, with thin braids intricately coiled atop her head. She may know, but be polite and be direct.
I appreciate your help. I hope to sample one of your concoctions, if not tonight, then another time. In the meantime, I will
happy to
fish
offer.
out.
Just let me know what effect profile you're after.
I'll give it some thought, and in the meantime, I will pull like a 10 out of my wallet and just leave it on the bar for your time, for your help.
Of course, and, thank you. You've been a delight.
I could say the same of you.
You get, if it were any hornier, it would be a leer, but it's just a very obvious smile. As the 10 disappears and 3 cocktails cross the bar, one of them is on fire.
And I will go over to see if I can't help George while presumably we see what Benjamin's been up to.
Sure. Benjamin, what have you been doing? Where have you gone? Who have you talked to?
I have been... It might be disconcerting from the outside, because I've been walking in circles in the night market. We've heard the rules, but I want to know the logic, the customs, the patterns, if there's anything behind the surface. So I would be people watching. Again, it might look weird to just see someone sort of skulking around. As you said, it's not a very big area. It also might look weird, and I'm happy to do 2 things at once because I'm starting to feel a little scruffy, even though I have absolutely no visible beard whatsoever. So you'd see the person skulking around dry shaving with half of a penny as he walks. And just noticing people as best he could.
Yeah, first roll do 2 things at once.
Sure, we'll do. 15.
Cool. Then roll double think and dodge separately.
Okay. Double think
These are
first.
the 2 things you're doing at once.
There you go. So double think rolls at 33.
Okay.
So above the skill, below the stat, and I will increment it. And then you said dodge as well, yeah?
Yes.
24.
Okay. So above the skill, below the stat. The easy part of this is that you do indeed succeed at not running into anyone, most notably George. Repeatedly, you do not run into George. There are a couple of other folks who are not vendors here, customers perhaps, really unclear. This is not the sort of thing where, other than the business that T is doing at the bar, where there's a lot of obvious commerce going on. But your double thing, you you have a bit of an internal image, a daydream, a hallucination, a thought, whatever you might want to call it, of...
Those are all synonyms, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Of course. Of... There are certain types of needlework that have a canvas backing them. There are certain types of needlework where you just have knitting needles or crochet hooks, or the instrument of the craft is also the initial instrument of support. And then there are the sorts of things like spiders' webs, where there are the initial lines and everything depends, as it were, from where it is hung on those lines. This market is one of the last of these in terms of its structural typology. The lines of sight were set up first, the lines of power were set up second. The array of the market is an outgrowth of these things. The customs are of politeness and commerce and extraction. You continue to not run into George.
Fascinating.
So having done that, are you going to any of the vendors in particular, or is this going to be the full of your timed experience here?
I think I've made the decision that the rest of the group has the vendors covered, and I'm letting the night market happen to me. If someone were to give me a hard sell, I'd probably respond to it, but otherwise I am just making a circuit and vibing.
Woohoo!
So I believe we were checking whether Benjamin was talking to anyone in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think my answer was that he's letting things happen. He's letting people happen to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Similar to the spider web, no one is directly approaching. However, you do see the sort of look of horror on the face of the man with the that is a mechanical hand, where George had been briefly speaking with him and then started running from, who feels, obviously bad that he seems to have inspired a running panic attack or equivalent. But otherwise, there aren't really that many people here. There's perhaps a dozen folks browsing things. There are another couple of stalls that don't really call as much attention to them. They're, carved animal figurines, or like, yep, this is stuff obviously made in like flea market style. But
a dozen people. That makes it really obvious that a slender nerd is doing tight circles, so that's great. I'm into it.
Yeah. No, you are aware that, like, you were a fly uncharacteristically circling close to the center of the web, but not quite touching it. To the nearest that you can tell, the spider is not actively present at the moment. Or,
that's useful information.
If so, is not directly present.
Do I see George having the version of a panic attack that he's having, or do I just see the aftermath?
Stepping out of his way.
Okay. I actively don't run into George.
Oh, okay. There goes George
you have
again.
Not been running into George.
So I'm going to say on the fourth go round, I ask whether he's okay.
If it is temporally appropriate, this is maybe the time at which I'm also approaching George to try and help him
out. So we will go into George's brainscape for a moment.
Sure.
It's
George, a little cramped.
You are being pursued. You are running like hell. You don't know how you got here. You may have been poisoned again. It's fine. It's fine. You're alive. You're breathing. You're running. You've been poisoned. You may have done it yourself. You really don't know. But you look behind you every now and then, and there is chasing you, an enormous hand? Spider. Hand. It's got 6 appendages, fingers, legs, too many joints, all of it clockwork, shiny, steel, sharp, pointed. And it's chasing you. You're going very quickly. You're just out of reach of it at like all times, all you can do. Yeah, it's chasing you down, and when you look behind you again, there are little ones too. They'd be cute if they weren't so horrifying. But you're pretty certain that, like, theirs is a poison you could not metabolize. You don't know how you know this. You don't know where you are. And then you are caught, stopped, bundled up, Drew, please roll for me struggle.
Yeah, given the context, this might be resisted.
Nia, feel free, if you are assisting, to roll violent protester.
I shall.
I rolled a 55, so I will increment it, but I don't know that that's going to go great.
So I have rolled a 50, which is above both skill and stat.
Okay.
We are
Nick.
So's my 55, to be clear. Yeah.
We
Feel
are
free
helping.
to roll kick butt, take some names.
That's a 64.
Okay. So what happens?
We're doing great.
Yeah, no, like, none of you rolled under your skills?
No.
Drew rolled spectacularly. Which is to say that you are stopped, by which I mean someone is attempting to safety hold you. You don't realize this yet, because what actually happens is you get clotheslined. And then it, in a very Three Stooges-like fashion from an external observational position, Nia and Benjamin and George all have their heads occupy the same space and time for a brief moment, and suddenly all 3 of you are seated. You see, Nick, the sort of after image of the little teeny tiny clockwork hand spider things circling you like Tweety birds.
This is terrible.
But you're back to yourself, and you've just run into the band that you really like in a very literal fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Can I walk out just in time to see the aftermath of this?
Oh yeah, you walk out, their heads bonk, they all fall down.
I will do my best to play it off like I thought that might happen, and sort of shake my head and George, or I mean, and Elias, are you all right?
They can fly now.
I just look at Benjamin. That's all I've got.
I look at you. I look to the skies. I look back to Annelius. Back to you. Back to the skies.
Are
I
you
shrug.
guys okay?
I climb to my feet and try to help the others up, and I think so. I think I'm all right.
Are the teeny tiny spiders still flying around my head?
They're fading, and it's pretty much the like. That was after images of like an impact, not a poison.
Yeah.
You're
doing okay. Yeah, a little dry.
Do I still have any water in my go bag? I know I used 2 bottles earlier.
I believe you specified you had 3, so I believe you have
right.
the 1 left.
I will offer it to Annelius before anyone gets any ideas about eating or drinking anything supplied here.
George accepts it gladly, and between gulps and gasps, just kind of mutters, really bad trip hallucinations. Whatever I took, maybe I'll give it a break for a little bit. Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you.
Yeah, sorry about the head bonk.
Yeah, no, that's
as long
okay.
as you're feeling better.
Yeah.
The good news is that the teeny tiny spiders were in your head. The better news is that I'm being figurative.
George says that's not comforting, that they were in my head. I'd much prefer that spiders stay outside.
Right. And speaking of spiders, I talked to the fortune teller, really great guy, by the way. And he gave me some good information, but I mostly learned that it looks like, and I lower my voice for this, everyone here seems to be connected to a thread.
Hey, Dan.
My eyes dart around.
Yes.
Roll or a
Strands.
Oh, that is going to be not good. A 91.
Before anything else happens, when you say thread, I do say strands of spider silk. Probably very helpfully.
I'm looking back and forth between the two of them, trying to figure out what the hell they're talking about.
I am going to allow you, if you want, given your fear stimulus, to switch the 10s and the 1s of your roll, Robin, if you want. You will have to make a helplessness check. Because you did see Rook have his body
paralyzed,
shaken.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, we haven't done a helplessness check yet.
It's the same. It's same as an unnatural check. You're rolling against mind. It's just in matters of helplessness rather than, oh, this shit ain't natural.
So I will go ahead and jump on that, because if I flip them, it'll be a 19, which would be a pretty significant success. So let me go ahead and do that check. And that is, barely under the wire, but I made it under mind for 55.
Okay.
Because
cool.
It's a skill, it don't do anything.
Because it's a stat, you don't get the, yes, okay. Exactly. But do mark a hardened notch in helplessness. And you see that every vendor but 2 has a string going from them to the contractor. The contractor has a braid going between her and her books. The books have threads and cords and wires and nooses going between them and a great many directions beyond the night market. And one of them is thick enough that it could support a suspension bridge. The two who are not connected are the bartender and a black woman sitting at a table, unobtrusively out of the way.
If it looks like my companions are going to be okay now that water has been distributed and heads have been rubbed, I will probably be heading...
You have done your punk duty, yes.
Yeah, I'll probably be heading over to Dawn's table.
I would like to inform my bandmates and new best friend to the information that I just learned before Neo wanders off. Since I didn't get a chance to react to that beautiful imagery. That was awesome. I also apologize for the long pause because I totally thought that you were going to pull it, and that's where we'll end our session.
No, I have an end in mind.
I will, Danny, give you a solemn nod as I go over, and a murmured thanks for the heads up, but I'm like trying to not be overheard in the wake of the information that you shared, but still heading over to Dawn's table.
She nods at you as you approach.
I nod back affably. Is it at all clear what goods or services are being provided at this table?
Nope. There is
fine.
Nothing on the card table that she is sitting behind, other than her elbows and her hands.
I will just...
There is a chair on the other side.
Okay. I will start with good evening. And I'll sort of gesture in a questioning fashion to the chair across from her, and continue with the bartender suggested you might be able to help me. May I sit?
Of course.
A
question for a question.
Have a seat.
That's the game.
A game. Oh, sounds good. Do I...
Business, game, price, however you want to term it. These are the terms of engagement.
See. I pause for a second, looking thoughtful. Did my question about taking a seat count, or...
You had not sat yet. I do not engage in... And the pause is in character. She sort of licks her lips while considering. In unaware exchanges.
I appreciate that. I feel like I've been mostly having to kind of play games since I got here, but if it's all right, I'd like to be somewhat more frank with you.
Always appreciated.
Incline my head. My companions and I have been somewhat less than willingly tasked with the retrieval of a stranger's name, and we're not provisioned with very much information beyond that. Primarily, we're here at the night market seeking that information, and it has been somewhat hard to come by. Even my own skills not provided me with as much information as I would have liked. So,
I will point out that you have not asked me a question.
Indeed not. Context, I suppose, is what I was providing there.
Understood, thank you.
Nod. I suppose my question would be, If you know it, how should we go about seeking this name we've been tasked to find?
I will answer both parts of your question. First, do you actually believe that your band will release a record?
Okay. In character, I am not laughing. But rather, I blink a couple times and then sort of sit up straight, my brow furrows, and I guess I've seen longer odds come true, but we're not as on track as I'd like us to be, and, well, I've seen more solid projects fail to coalesce, but, well, Danny's a good kid, and Benjamin seems like he needs the outlet, so I'd like to come out with an album. She nods. But shrug.
I do not have the name, and you will not find it here. If it were here, it would be too late. You may not be prepared for where it is, and you may be better off looking for allies first. I would suggest a lighthouse in the park.
Well, that's certainly the most helpful any of the people I've met today have been. You have my thanks.
Do you
have
come
out
questions?
with a record, I'll be sure to get you one. I smile self-deprecatingly. Consider for a moment, in character, and then lean forward a little bit, looking kind of concerned, and say, "Is this a dream Danny's having?"
I love that Nia is more concerned about this than Danny.
Very in character on both of our parts.
Much.
How did you get the first book that constituted your library rather than just a book you owned?
Oh. I guess kind of appropriately, that's a bit of a deep cut. I don't know, I was somewhere in my 20s, I guess, and the details have gone, but there was some DIY publishing going on. This was back closer to my hometown. Wasn't in Chicago yet. And kind of before I knew it, I was just circulating self-published books and zines, and for those who are interested, just copies of theory, political screeds. Yeah, it seems like it happened real fast when I look back on it, but it's weird. I can't really remember the first thing that was like I thought of as part of my collection. I'd like to say it was something impressive, but honestly, it was probably just someone's homemade manifesto,
Given the imprecision, which is understandable, and I am not taking that as an attempt to slight on payment. What is the difference between a manifesto and a political stance and a political party? What is the difference between a dream and an experience and a life?
Yeah, fair.
Drew, would you roll
Yes.
for me? Hunches.
Sure. 92.
Okay. Danny, would you roll Aura Sight? And would the other two roll Notice?
Darn, 97.
I thought for a second I had actually succeeded on a Notice because I thought I had rolled a 6, but in fact I rolled a 60, which is well above my Notice, but equal to my mind.
61 for George.
The best roll out of...
The dice are angry tonight, lads.
So,
Struth.
none of you, it looks like, succeeded there. So, Drew, you are caught up, as in fact are you, Danny, at the elegance with which the contractor pulls on the cables and the threads, and the spider web becomes a net and begins to close. You, Nia, are facing away from the center of the night market and are engaged in conversation, so it is understandable that you don't really notice this. And George has been scared out of his mind, thinks he's been poisoned, and had head bonk recently, so all of these things. I think the first of you to sort of snap out and notice is Nia, despite all of this. And because you see Dawn, and it occurs to you that it may be her name, it may not be her name, but it's a name. Whereas otherwise you've had, Rook and T and the Dane and, well, Jane, the contractor. And you never did get the Clockwork guy's name, any of you, or title. She stands and she makes as if to fold up the card table, makes the executive decision to leave that behind, and grabs you by the elbow. You are being escorted out.
By Dawn?
Yes.
Okay. You tell me if this is something that I can reasonably do, and if not, that's fine. But if I am kind of taking note and suspecting that I am being or in danger of being affected magically in an unwelcome way, my first instinct is going to be like go along, with the person who knows what she's doing here, but haul the one reasonably rare book in my mobile library out. I will decide momentarily on what it is likely to be, and use book burn to absorb the effect for 2 significant charges.
Okay. And for the listeners, what does that do?
Book burn allows me to absorb into a sufficiently rare and valuable book that I am holding in my hand or otherwise touching any magic spell, ritual, or artifact power directed at me, and then I can release it the next time the book is opened.
Okay.
So whether or not this effect is eligible, I guess, is the thing that I'm not 100% sure of, but it's going to be the thing that in character I'm like
sure
primed to do.
Roll an arcobibliomancy.
Will do. That's going to be a 6.
Cool. We will get back to that.
All right.
The two of you who are looking in woobly sight, that is to say, Benjamin and Danny, see a pair of flies. No, Dawn, you don't know why you know her name? Title. It's a title. And Nia power walking towards you as, oh, the threads, the spider web. We're the flies. George, you see Nia, and he's on the arm of some woman you hadn't noticed before in the flea market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
What's
I
everyone
will.
doing?
I'll approach and walk along with. That's my intention anyway.
I'll do the same. I also, however, take the sharpened half of my penny and slash at any of these threads closing in on me. I think I invoke lateral thinking. Obviously, they're not physically there, but also they are.
Can I?
Please roll well.
I would love to. Nothing would give me greater pleasure. That is a 3.
Okay.
Like a 0 and a 3.
Okay. I will allow you to use your noble stimulus to flip that to a 30.
Okay.
And it catches on the thread with the clockwork maker and severs it. He stands, and all the other vendors are also standing now, and waves his clockwork hand over his tiny steampunk contraptions, and they scatter off the table in every direction except directly towards you all. There is a sudden cacophony of noises as those that were intended to make music are doing that, but also screaming the protest of, we were not intended to move like this. And you all join up. I'm going to say that you are all now arm in arm by elbows, very Yellow Brick Road style. Everyone roll speed.
Roll what?
Speed.
Okay.
21.
Oh, good.
9.
37.
31, a success.
Yeah, mine I think is under 40, so I'm good.
Yes. Everyone
under 40 is me
has
too.
succeeded, which is very good. This means that you
to see
get
the wizard.
past the Dane before you will need to roll initiative. But we'll pick up with that next time.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Well, damn.
To put it on the record before I forget, I decided that my valuable book that I carry with me for this purpose is an original French 1892 publication of The Conquest of Bread by Kropotkin.
Nice.
The bread book got in there. Amazing.
This concludes this episode of Dice Punks. Thank you for listening. If you are listening, you obviously know where to find us, but we are available approximately anywhere that podcasts can be found. We also have the after show, the Dice Peaks, that we will be recording in a moment, and if you are a member of our Patreon, you will have access to. And since I am completely off script, I may have butchered that announcement, but here we are. Everyone gets 2 XP.
Woohoo!
Woo.
Thanks for listening, folks, and try to notice when the spider web closes on you.
And you know, whether you notice or not, if you're going to be stuck, it's good to have some good reading material. Carry it with you.
And when you vibe along with the abyss vibes also with you.
Song title.
Even if you find yourself in the middle of a spider web, remember that we are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with sleep.
As long as you're with friends, then maybe things are better than they could have been otherwise.
Oh.
You're here.
And as the poet once said, strangers here still seem strange. They hear the accent, know I'm from nowhere near, but I speak the language, and I know the customs clear.
Thank you for tuning in to more of this interstitial mini-series, dear listeners, and stick around through the admin stuff for some physical and mental health advice from George. The songs in this episode, theme of the Dice Punks in its acoustic version, were written and recorded by our very own Benjamin Demos, Drew. Cover art and editing was done by Joanne, who has appeared on the podcast now and again. Check out her work around the internet where she goes by Anything Sows. Site design and graphics for DicePunks.com are by Robin, the player behind Dreamboy Danny. Unknown Armies was created by Greg Stoltze and John Tynes, and you can check out all 3 editions of it at atlasgames.com/unknownarmies. That's Atlas Games with a hyphen in between them. Links to the system and authors can be found in the Punk Grimoire section of our website, dicepunks.com. Thanks so much for listening. If you liked what you heard, that's reward enough on its own, but if you're so inclined, you can help us out by rating and reviewing us wherever you listen to us, telling your friends who you think would like us to give us a listen, and even by heading over to our Patreon at patreon.com/dicepunks. We have fun rewards available to backers, including a patron-only Discord and access to the Dice Peaks after show for episodes 1 and following. Regardless, we hope you'll tune in again, and until then, remember, subtlety is for cowards.
It's George. I'm George. That's my name. It might be your name too. I don't know. Anyway, some of you might be wondering how to get big and strong like me. Some of the others of you might be wondering how to deal when things get overwhelming. If so, I'd like to give all of you a simple piece of advice. Push dis. Push dis is an adjective. It stands for pick up something heavy, drop ideas that seem strange. Now, let me drop some science on all of you. Dr. People seem to agree that the brain is the root cause of unhappiness. But the brain does have a weakness that we can exploit. It needs blood to do its thinky stuff. And that blood can be put to better use elsewhere. Someplace it can do some good instead of making you sad. The muscles. So, if you lift up heavy things, the blood will go to your muscles and away from the brain. You'll be less sad and you'll get stronger at the same time. GED. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Hey, I'm still thinking. I can't seem to pick up something heavy enough to get rid of all these thoughts. Well, that's where dis comes in. Let's say you walk outside. You feel the sun on your face and you think to yourself, this is going to be a good day. See, that's a good thought. That thought can stay. That thought is worth the blood to think it. Now, let's say you have a thought like, this is a bad day. The universe is a spiraling vortex of malevolence and indifference. In the grand scheme of things, my every act is meaningless, and everyone I ever love and anyone who will ever remember me will be a quintessence of dust in an empty void, robbed and bereft of even the ineffable ghost that made our atoms special. That spark that made us different from barren stone, erased with no trace at all of who we once were, and no one left in this cold void even to mourn that fact. That's a strange thought. That thought doesn't help you. That thought, well, the blood would be better put towards lifting something heavy. The neat thing is that if you put that blood towards thinking the good thoughts and lifting heavy things, there's not enough blood left over to think the strange thoughts and make you sad. So remember, if you want to be big and strong and live easy, just push dis. And maybe listen to some One for Sorrow. This has been George, and it still is.